It's July 1st, 1976, and a unalived 23-year-old woman lays there, alone, in her bedroom in Bavaria. She weighs exactly 68 pounds. So according to court testimony, her knees were shattered, the ligaments reportedly ruptured from performing over 600 rapid genuflections in a single day. The official autopsy states she died of severe malnutrition and dehydration. But the state of Germany, they didn't quietly bury her, no. Instead, they indicted her parents and 2 Catholic priests for negligent homicide. This is the case of Anneliese Michel, the real-life inspiration for the exorcism of Emily Rose. For decades, the debate has been binary. Either she was possessed by Lucifer, Judas, and Hitler, or she was a victim of a profound epileptic psychosis and religious fanaticism. But what if there is a different lens through which to view this? One that bridges the gap between the clinical and the spiritual. So what if Anneliese did not really just lose her mind, but maybe she actually entered a state of consciousness that her body just biologically couldn't sustain? To understand the tragic end of Anneliese, we have to look at what she was actually studying as her demonic premises begin. Because Anneliese, she was a university student and she was pursuing a degree in pedagogy and theology. Her thesis was titled Fear and Its Religious Educational Coping Strategies. I mean, think about that. As she was actively researching the psychological architecture of religious fear, she then began experiencing it firsthand. Scary, okay? The medical history, however, is a landscape of complete uncertainty. While she was diagnosed with epilepsy, the clinical evidence was debated. A 1970s EEG performed by neurologist Dr. Wolfgang Haller showed inconclusive results, which notably, it does not mean an absence of epilepsy, but it does kind of indicate an absence of evidence or proof. Because temporal epilepsy is very difficult to capture on a scan. And furthermore, the narrative that she was ignored by medicine is more of a simplification. It's not really a fact. So she was prescribed anticonvulsants, but their treatment was unfortunately inconsistent and then eventually was discontinued as the family's suspicion of the medical establishment grew. And they turned then instead to Bishop Josef Stankel. But if the diagnosis remained a point of debate, what was actually happening to her perception, I wonder? Okay, if consciousness is a shoreline, then the unseen is the open galaxy. Now, you and me, we are land creatures. We're built for logic and oxygen off the shore. But normally, your brain employs a sensory gating to kind of keep you in reality. But consider something where intense, repetitive spiritual focus acts as a psychological solvent. By fixating on the invisible for a crazy amount of long hours, the boundary separating the self from the surrounding environment can begin to blur. Now we enter Adolf Rodewijk. He is a priest who identified the primary entity tormenting Anneliese as Judas. 67, and I say 67, okay, exorcism sessions were authorized, kept in complete and absolute secrecy. The family locked down the entire house. From a certain interpretive perspective, I mean, this wasn't just a religious ritual, but it was more like a total immersion in a reality where the demonic was the only stimulus. But why did this internal narrative eventually demand the one thing that will guarantee Anneliese's death? And that's actually where it went downhill for Anneliese, because she stopped eating and she stopped drinking. She believed she was commanded to atone for the sins of modern youth. Clinically, we do know that starvation causes the brain to eat itself, its own stability, fueling psychosis and making rational anchoring impossible. But think of food not just as fuel, but more like as a biological eject button. Because when you are lost in a high-stress, dissociative, or even visionary state, right? Your body demand for glucose is a survival signal designed to pull you back to the surface of reality. Kind of, back to the shore where you belong, where you can breathe, where you can survive. But by refusing to eat, Anneliese then essentially destroyed her mechanism for return. She couldn't come back on the shore. Whether you view the command to fast as a demonic strategy or a symptom of a feedback loop between religious trauma and biology, the result is still the same. She was cutting the tether to her own physical survival. She was so lost in her high stress and dissociative or visionary state, she then started to stop eating, and then of course she couldn't find her way back. This is my interpretation of this, but I will also tell you about my complete personal opinion by the end of the video, so stay tuned. Let's look at the tragedy that followed. Without a metabolic anchor, okay? Without anything that will keep you on the shore, the brain cannot reboot its hardware. Anneliese stayed submerged in her internal world until the energy debt reached fatal proportions. Father Arnold Renz performed the final exorcism on June 30th, 1976, and just one day later, she was gone. The Klinenberg trial found her parents and the priest guilty of negligent homicide for letting her starve. So this is a verdict that still haunts the intersection of faith and law. Skepticism in this light then acts as a biological protective suit somehow, right? Because it keeps us on the shore, protecting the metabolic reserves that we need to function. I personally believe that Anneliese Michel was caught in between two worlds that just didn't know how to save her. But here's what I personally believe would really happen, which this actually goes far beyond any court records. I do believe is that whenever we put ourselves in this state of meditation or prayers, we kind of go really deep inside our own consciousness. Sometimes we even forget what's around us. If you've ever had a meditation session, or if you ever prayed, do you sometimes feel like you just forget everything around you and you just even forget about time? What if this is exactly the time when we make ourselves more vulnerable to a world that we aren't meant to discover? What if we pretty much tune in to a world that we would not be able to survive in? Kind of like when you are an astronaut and you go into space, you wouldn't be able to survive in that environment without a spacesuit, would you? So what if she made herself so much available because of just who she was, that whatever there was got attached to her and actually really made her possessed? People who don't believe in any spiritual things, maybe they do feel that this is probably the safest way to go. Because think of it, they don't really make themselves available to anything. They stay away from it. They stay on the shore, so to say. They stay on this planet where they belong. They don't go anywhere out of space without a spacesuit on. So in Anneliese's case, I think that she made herself available to a frequency that the human body doesn't know how to carry. And for the non-believers, they are not just closed-minded. I think they just kind of figured out a way to keep the gates locked.